Hi, everybody. It is your weekly Mussar class, and this week we are looking at chapter 4, starting in page 154 and moving through page 162 in our book that we've been reading, Shar Bitachon by Havos Hala- Halavat. I can never say his last name. Labos. Sorry. Today, we're going to be talking about some mistakes that people make when it comes to their finances and the appropriate way that we're supposed to view these situations through Bitachon in Hashem. So, to start off with, we're going to be talking about um, the subheading A Misguided Quest Wealth for the Sake of Honor. Now, the author explains that some people think that a way to gain honor is to be wealthy. And the reason that people think this is because um, that there are common people will pay honor to those who have money for different reasons. The thing about this is there for these people who think that they need to have money in order to have honor, there is no amount of money that will ever be enough. They believe that they will bring honor to themselves because they have wrongly assessed that what brings true honor in this world and in the world to come. The cause of this mistake is the honor that they see common folk, just like I said, accord people of wealth. What they are not realizing is that this honor is really because these people covet what the wealthy have. These common people hope to draw to themselves some of the wealth that is in the possession of the wealthy. So, really, their quote unquote honor is mere flattery and not true honor. So, the thing about this is one who toils to amass money because he's worried about his future needs will rest once he has accumulated enough to support himself for the rest of his life. So it makes me think of like a retirement fund. But one who chases after money because he thinks it brings him honor will never rest. And because the desire for honor is insatiable, which is something that Miss Batya has taught us before in another class. When you're trying to seek honor, you won't find it. But it's when you behave honorably, then Hashem bestows honor upon you. And that is what we want. We do not want to seek it. It is insatiable. So let's look at some of the things that the author points out. The first thing he points out is the folly of the populace who attempts to gain riches through flattering the wealthy. Hi, Miss Hadas. Nice to see you on. The folly of the populace who attempt to gain riches by flattering the wealthy. So, first of all, if the populace would be wise and understand that it is not within the ability or power of the wealthy to either give anything to anyone or withhold anything from anyone unless the creator has ordained that this should happen to this person, they would not hope in anyone but Hashem. Nobody would be deserving of honor in their eyes other than the person whom the Creator has identified as having praiseworthy qualities, i.e., the person who has qualities that Hashem has identified in the Torah as praiseworthy. For he is deserving of being honored by the Creator, as it is written in 1 Samuel 2:30, for those who honor me, I will honor. So by having the qualities that Hashem is looking for in his people, that way we will actually honor God. And when we honor God, God honors us. Some people flatter the rich in hope of receiving gifts from them. Others do so out of a desire to join their business ventures, and yet others seek to join their social circles so that they will receive benefits by being perceived as wealthy. Whatever honor any of them accord to a wealthy person is self serving and does not reflect genuine respect for that person. So, really, I mean, it's not helping that person in any way because it's not respecting them at all. It is basically just trying to see what you can get out of them, which I don't know about you, but that kind of makes me kind of cringe. But, anyways, it kind of feels cringy, as my daughter would say. Um, True honor in both worlds stem from perfection of character and good deeds. Money does not gain a person genuine respect in either world. So just because you have a lot of wealth in this world doesn't necessarily mean that you will have wealth in the Olam Haba, which honestly, if you think about it, Hashem or the Messiah said we need to try to um, earn wealth that will be, you know, safe from being destroyed or stolen or rotting here on earth. The wealth that we need to be striving for is the wealth that doesn't rot away or decay, that is made available by Hashem in the Olam Haba. So, the next point that we need to look at is we need to always remember that Hashem is the true source of funds. This is especially important for people who are raising money for charities. So we just discussed the fallacies that people function under and the foolish things that they do because they see somebody who has money and they want some of that money, so they try to ingratiate themselves to the wealthy. But this is the deal. Money all comes from God. So we need to remember that Hashem is the true source. This is especially important for people who are raising money for charities, especially for charities that are meant to help further something within Hashem's kingdom, like within our own, like Magen Yashianu. As ambassadors of Hashem, we need to be extra careful to avoid the mistakes of the common people. Their actions and words, or our actions and words, should reflect the conviction that Hashem, not the wealthy person, is who determines the income of the institution. We should certainly express a proper appreciation for the donor, but we need to recognize that this all happened because Hashem based our efforts, blessed our efforts, and gave us the success that we need. Now, the author has a little bit of a story in here, and I thought this story was really cool. As a case in point, Matinus Chelko relates that sometime after the Chazan Ish established his renowned kollel in Bnei Barak, there was a severe shortage of funds, and 2 members of the kollel offered to seek donations overseas. The Chazan Ish advised them to go to Switzerland. His advice was surprising, since at that time the community there was not in a position to donate liberally. Indeed, they returned with a paltry sum. A month later, a wealthy man from America, who had been the beneficiary of a great favor from the Chazan Ish, visited Eretz Israel, and without being asked, he donated the amount sufficient to carry the kollel for a year. The Chazan called the 2 men who had returned dejectedly from Switzerland and told them, "This is the fruit of your labor." They had done the necessary hard work on behalf of the kollel, and in return, Hashem had sent them the needed funds in the avenue that Hashem chose. I think that a lot of times that is another big key deal here, because when we go through things, we don't realize that, this isn't for us to decide. This is for Hashem to decide. And sometimes we try really hard to grab the control and um, hang on to this like it's our thing to control. We're not in the driver's seat here. God is in the driver's seat, and we need to accept things the way that Hashem presents it. So, the next point, a rich man has absolutely no control over these matters. So, just to the point of this story. For example, he can choose to give a needy person money, but whether or not this will actually happen is determined by Hashem alone. Conversely, a wealthy man can choose to withhold funds from a needy person. But if it was ordained that some of this money should be transferred to that man, Hashem will make it somehow find its way into his possession. So see, even if you are wealthy and you have the money at hand, Hashem is going to still direct where it goes. We are not in control of all the things that we think we are in control of, if that makes any sense to you. The next thing that our book talks about is the fate of those who flatter others in pursuit of money and honor. The fate of those who flatter others in pursuit of money and honor is that because common folk act foolishly in honoring the wealthy with various forms of honor in hope of attaining wealth and honor for themselves, the Creator adds to their foolishness in regard to the various avenues that they employ to obtain their goal. And they become caught up in expending strenuous effort and great toil all their days in pursuit of wealth and the honor that they crave. Thus preoccupied, they neglect what they are obligated to be expending effort for and hastening to, which is to fulfill their obligations towards the Creator and to thank Him for His kindness to them. If they would apply their efforts in this way, their goals of money and honor would undoubtedly be closer to their reach. As the verse states in Mishlei 3:16, length of days is at the Torah's right, at the left, wealth and honor. And in 1 Divrei Ha-Yamim, I'm not sure what book that is, I'm guessing it's the Oral Torah, 29:12, it says, wealth and honor come from you. By honoring Hashem, they would be more successful at earning a living and being honored by the people. When someone does Hashem's will, he behaves in an exemplary fashion and he honors Hashem. This is the person of praiseworthy qualities who is worthy of Hashem's honor. The next thing is this issue of misunderstanding success. We need to remember what we've already learned up to this point, that we are to engage in work for the purpose of meeting our basic needs, and that if Hashem decrees that a person will have more than that, Hashem will provide it without the person expending extra effort, provided that the person trusts Hashem. One should not seek additional avenues of income and should not rely on them. Okay, so keeping that in mind, the next situation is those who think their financial prosperity is a result of the means through which they obtained it. The book gave us a cute little story about a peasant who, for the first time in his life, went on a train. Somebody had told him that the train was like a horse that just went faster and carried more people. So at first, when the train starts moving, it starts moving really slow. And so the man thinks, well, maybe I need to hit the train because when I want my horse to go faster, I hit the horse and the horse goes faster. So he starts hitting the side of the train and the train speeds up. But because the man doesn't have the understanding of how the train works, he believes that it was his hitting the side of the train that made the train speed up. Like that man, sometimes we will find people who seek money and that have achieved their financial goals either through extra effort or through something effortless like inheritance. This person believes, just like the man on the train, that it was however he managed to get that money, whether it was his extra effort, working extra hours, or it was being, he inherited it or something else, won it big on the stock market, won the lottery. They believe that it's those means that made that so they could achieve their goals. What they're doing is they're attributing what what God has done to the means by which God provided it. So they're looking at the means instead of the one who instigated the means, which is something we human beings tend to do a lot. Had the means been withheld from him, he would have obtained the wealth through different means. If God is determined that you get a set amount of money every year, then that is the amount of money you will get, regardless of how it's delivered to you. And that's the point here. It's not about how it's delivered, it's about who sent it. And it's Hashem who sent it. If one believes that his success stems from his effort, Hashem allows him to work harder and continue to err. So, this is another example of if we're determined to keep doing the wrong thing, Hashem will leave us to it. He'll let us dig ourselves into a big hole until we're ready to turn around and acknowledge him and ask for his help and give him the gratitude that we should be giving him. Okay, so let's talk about dealing with financial difficulties. We've got a couple of different situations here when it comes to financial difficulties. First, we have those who lack the income that they need. For the person who has faith, the Bitachon, the trust in Hashem, and has tried his best, but is unable to earn the income that he needs to remind himself of this. And then the author says, the one who brought me out into this world in a specific period and a specific moment, and did not bring me out into the world before that time or after that time, is the same one who is withholding the earning of my income until a specific time and a specific day, because he knows what is best for me. That is the kind of trust that a person who is not able to earn all the money that they needs to have. The second person is a person who is able to just get what they need for the bare necessities. They're not able to get much more than what it costs to put the roof over their house and some food in their mouth. The roof over their head and food in their mouth. For the one with Bitachon and Hashem, and has only been able to earn enough for his food, he should remind himself of this. The one who arranged my nutrition for me at my mother's breast in the beginning of my existence, when I was an infant, provided the amount of milk appropriate to my needs and sufficient to nourish me each and every day until he exchanged my mother's milk for something better for me when I was weaned. He knew exactly how much milk I needed, and for as long as I nursed, I was not harmed in the slightest by the fact that the milk came in limited amounts, with just enough being released at each feeding, so that no more and no more. Sorry, at each feeding and no more. So too, I will not be harmed in the slightest if the form of sustenance to which he has assigned me now come to me in limited amounts, precisely in accordance with my needs, with no surplus until the end of my life. The person who can trust Hashem like this will be rewarded for his faith. As the Creator said about our forefathers in the wilderness, who were in a similar situation with the manna, where each person received only what he needed for that day. The people had to rely on Hashem to send them each day's food on the very day that it was needed. A person who maintains his Bitachon when he has barely enough to live on displays a similar degree of faith and merits a comparable reward. That was encouraging to me. I don't know about you guys, but personally, sometimes it seems like all we get in is just what we need to put food on the table. So having that faith that God's going to take care of us, even if times seem a little bit slim, that's having the same faith that Israel had when they walked through the wilderness, which I don't know about you guys, but that really encouraged me. The third situation is those whose sustenance comes to them via a means that is not to their liking. So if we can think about this for a minute, sometimes we, hold on a second. There we go. Sometimes our income comes to us in a particular medium or a particular place or through a particular person. It's not what we prefer. Some people are working at McDonald's and they'd much rather not work at McDonald's. Some people are on some form of government assistance and don't want to be on government assistance. This is the point. The one who formed me in a specific shape with specific qualities and traits, rather than in some other form and with other qualities and traits, and who did so for the benefit of my specific role in this world, is the same one who chose for me, that my income should come to me in a way that is most productive to my role, rather than in some other way that would be less productive. And the one who brought me out into this world in a specific place by way of two specific people, rather than making me the product of two other people, is the same one who chose for me that my income should come to me in a specific country by a specific person whom he has appointed to be the medium through which he conveys to me my income for my benefit. As the verse states in Psalm 145:17, righteous is Hashem in all his ways. To me, the point that that's making is, sometimes we'd much rather have our, income come to us in a different fashion. But you have to ask yourself, well, why is God giving it to me this way? Is this something integral to the role that he wants me to play right now? I could ask that question myself. A large part of my income currently comes through a waiver program because I work for one of my children. I don't like being employed this way because I feel like I'm living off the largesse of others. And I'd much rather be in a position where I'm earning money that's not in the same way. But you know what? God knows the needs of my family, and he knows that my son needs that attention. And so he's provided me a way to give him the attention I need. And so it's my job to say, Baruch Hashem, you know what's best for our family, and I'm going to pursue that. I stopped here in the book at page 162, just above the next category, because the next week we'll talk about the third category, to which Bitachon applies to relationships with others. So I figured that was a good stopping place. And since I promised you guys last week that we would do 2 chapters in the Mussar Torah commentary to make up, so we'll be all caught up, I figured it was a good idea to keep the first book a little bit short this week. Um, so we have 2 chapters in the Mussar Torah commentary to address, and the first one is for last week's Torah portion, which was Parasha Bahalacha. I'm not really sure if I'm saying that right. It's in Numbers 8:1 through 12:16, and for that Torah portion, the midot is anava, which is humility in leadership. The rabbi who wrote this chapter is Rabbi Max Weiss, and I thought that what he had to say about humility and leadership was actually very astute, and I found that I really appreciated his approach to this. He starts off by saying humility can be a difficult topic in our society because we tend to value the individual more than the community. Usually, to be humble in our society is seen to be less than, or to be small, or to take a step on the road that leads to obscurity. Mussar's definition of humility is different, as we've all learned before, especially through the first book that we did with Miss Batya, the Alan Moranis book. In Hebrew, the word for self-abasement, which is the kind of thing that people do when they think they're trying to be humble, but they're not, is, okay, I can't say this, shfilah, shifla. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Probably not. Maimonides places humility as the center point between self-abasement and arrogance. Humility, properly conceived, is the state of being that places the individual into a social structure that allows both of them, the individual and society, to thrive. To me, this sounds a whole lot like the Seder, the order that we talked about in Parashat Bamidbar just a couple weeks ago. If you remember, the individual was not sacrificed for the sake of the community. Rather, the individual was placed within the community and enabled to do their part within the greater community. Humility is similar in that the person with humility is able to be their individual self and function within the community without overstepping their role. Not only do they not overstep their role, but they don't underperform in their role either. So just like Alan Moranis talked about, it's taking up your rightful seat on the bench. You're not laying down on the bench, and you're not barely sitting on the bench. You're taking up your rightful seat. In this parasha, though, Bahalaka, Moses is our example of humility. He is both humble and powerful. He stands at the center of the Torah and more than any other connects heaven to earth. The only one that I could see that connects heaven to earth, possibly more than Moshe, would be the Messiah when he returns. He mediates between God and people, and even as he stands in the midst of the people. This actually ends up coming to help Moses quite a bit. Moses' humility is based on his recognition that he lives his life among and with his people, not at the center and not above them. His humility flows from his knowledge of his proper place in the world. This awareness allows him both to lead and to follow, and be in front and to be behind, to know his power and to know his limits. He is not abasing, nor does his power lead into arrogance. Moses' clear perception of his own place is evident in several places in this parasha. First of all, when the men carrying Joseph's bones ask Moses how they can observe Pesach, Moses didn't just start telling him what to do. He said, "Wait, let me go ask God." Why? Because he wasn't God. He wasn't the one who's deciding that. He was the mediator. He was the person between the people and God. So he did his role. He went to God and said, "Hey, God, how do you want them to do this?" And then he came back and told the men what God said to do. Um, he recognized that he was not in charge, rather that he was the mediator between the people and God, and he proceeds in that fashion. A mark of humility is to recognize and act from the limit of one's knowledge and sphere of control. Humility is the public acknowledgement of one's limited place in this world. And Moses claims only the space he needs in order to serve Hashem's will, and his community's needs. So then, number 2, Moses cried out to Hashem when the burden of leadership was too much for him to bear. The way that he communicates this to Hashem is by comparing himself to a mother who gives her body and soul constantly and consistently and entirely, always attentive to the needs of the infant child. And Moses tells God, "That's not me." He knows who he is. He does not self-abase or abnegate. Rather, he is honest with Hashem about his self-doubt, and he knows his limits. In response, Hashem appoints 70 leaders, which we come to know as the Sanhedrin, and gives them a portion of the Ruach HaKodesh that was on Moses. And the thing about this is that Moses, in his humility, makes it possible for him to share Moses' humility makes it possible for him to share the role of leadership with the 70 elders. He allows himself to become smaller so that the others can become larger. Humility helps Moses to recognize a solution that works. Moses understands that sharing the burden of leadership means accepting a new role in the community publicly and gratefully. And this new place and its limits are defined by the needs of the community and his own needs as well. So there's your balance, because it's not just all the community's needs, or it's not just all Moshe's needs, but it's balanced between what they both need. So the individual, Moshe, is not lost within the greater community, and the community's needs are not missed by the individual. So you're not having the extremes of arrogance or destruction of the individual. Using this model of humility, Moses' model, goal-oriented leaders do not place themselves first, but place the goal first and create the space for other leaders to work within them. And I like that idea because, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I've always wondered about humility. It seems like anymore, if you feel confident about something, that kind of scares people. But somebody who's humble is able to be confident, but still keeps what is needed in mind and is able to do so in a way that doesn't hurt the individual person, but also is able to help the community. Okay, so the next chapter, and this will get us all caught up, is for this week's Torah portion, which is Shalach Lacha. Shalach Lacha. And the midot for this Torah portion is savlanut, to be patient and to love. I have to, at this point, give a massive disclaimer. As you guys will see when you go read this chapter is kind of concerning to me, not because of the topic, but because of the way the author presented it. This author is Rabbi Sonia Piltz, and she is a Reform rabbi, and unfortunately, um, the way she wrote this chapter concerned me because it seemed to be putting God on trial in a way, and it wasn't very kind to God. So, what I did is I went and got our copy of the Midrash Says for the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, and I looked at the Torah portion, and I looked in um, the Midrash Says to see how did the whole situation play out and how was God being patient. Since her example was of God being patient, let's see how we can observe God being patient in the Midrash Says. So, Savlunot means patience, and without patience, love dies. Okay, so here's my disclaimer. Unfortunately, this is about all the author of the chapter said that I agree with. In this chapter, the author presents Hashem as impatient and angry God who reacts in humanly ways towards his poor ex-slave people who are victims of their anxiety and fear. While she points out, or while the points that she makes, would be acceptable to some extent when dealing with two human beings, it falls apart when you look at how Hashem behaves with his people. So while the author of this chapter strove to show how Hashem was impatient and angry with Israel, I have looked at the Parsha and I intend to show you how Hashem was actually patient with Israel. Our Parsha opens up with all of the tribes except for the tribe of Levi requesting of Moshe that they be able to send spies into the land Hashem had promised them. They justified their requests for sending in spies with the following. 1, the spies will be able to advise us as to which route to take. 2, they will inform us which cities can be conquered easily. 3, they said that Hashem promised to bring us into the land of good and precious things. Before our arrival, the people of Canaan will hide all their precious objects. The spies can observe the inhabitants and investigate their hiding places. 4, they even cited halakha, advocating for the spies to ascertain which idols they would need to destroy. So it sounds like it's all for good, right? Number 5, they said, moreover, Hashem promised to drive out the inhabitants little by little, which is from Shemot 23:20. We must decide which cities should be attacked and conquered first. Number 6, the spies will also ascertain the native language. They thought this would be useful for uncovering the opposing armies' plans as Israel waged war in Canaan. Now, that war to conquer the land of Canaan lasted 7 years. And strangely enough, there were 7 nations there. In actuality, Bnei Israel actually wished to send spies because of 2 doubts that plagued them. 1, although Hashem assured them that Eretz Israel was a good land and no one of this generation had seen it, they were not convinced. In other words, they didn't believe Hashem that this land was special enough to warrant fighting a major war. They wanted eyewitness confirmation that the promised land was in fact good. Wow. I don't know about you guys, but that kind of gives me the creeps. Think about that. I don't believe you that this gift that you promised me is any good. Oh my gosh, can you imagine being a young man asking a woman to marry him? And she's like, well, let me see the ring first because I don't believe you can give me a nice enough ring. Whoa, that hurts. I mean, it's cringy. Okay. Number two, uh, B'nai Israel compared to the numerous and well-trained armies of the 7 nations who inhabited Eretz Canaan. Israel comprised only a handful of unskilled fighters. How could they face such fearsome enemies on unknown terrain and without exact knowledge of their enemies' numbers, the strength of their armies, and other details relevant to combat? So now I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I have all kinds of red flags going up right now with the way that Israel is behaving at this point in the Torah. So think about this. I don't know about you, but to me, this sounds like now they were getting close to receiving the promises that God had made them. They have been, that they've been anticipating this whole time. They stopped trusting God to deliver what he promised. And they tried to take control of everything so that it would turn out the way they wanted it to. There are so many problems with this. First of all, they cannot fully comprehend what Hashem has planned for them. Yet, I mean, because didn't we not just learn that the way Hashem thinks is not the way we think? I mean, we just learned that a couple weeks ago in the Bitachon book. Yet they couldn't trust Hashem, the one who split the Red Sea so they could pass through on dry land. I mean, that's pretty huge. The one who spoke with all of Israel in his own voice until they begged Moses to be their mediator because they were afraid of him. Hashem is the one who fed them manna through the whole wilderness. And he led them with a cloud by day and a pillar by night. Hashem cleared their path and they were kept safe the whole journey. Yet now they were about to receive the great promise and they couldn't trust Hashem. This reminds me of when I have tried in the past to give my children a treat or a surprise, and they somehow manage to access it and consume it before I can present it to them. It's discouraging, and it robs you of your joy of giving your child good things. And just as you may not move forward with your plans for your child who has accessed his treat before you can give it to them, Hashem decides that this generation of Israel is not worthy of entering the promised land. Yet when Moses consults with Hashem about sending in the spies, Hashem says, "If you wish it, I will not prevent you. However, send the spies for yourself, Moshe, not for me. I am not involved in this project." So right there, Hashem is stepping back and saying, well, if that's how y'all want to do it, go have fun. But you don't know what more Hashem could have done or would have provided, or how glorious it could have been. It's, to me, reminds me of the Garden of Eden all over again. What would have happened had Adam and Hava not eaten from that tree? What kind of Shabbat would they have had with Hashem had they only done what Hashem had said? So trusting Hashem is huge. It goes into so many things. But the point of this chapter was patience. So look at the patience that Hashem has. At this point, when they're asking for spies and they're showing Hashem they don't trust him, what does Hashem say? Okay, go for it. He doesn't strike them dead. You're not having the ground open up and swallow anybody. He says, go for it. But I'm not part of this. Okay. So I don't know about you, but as a parent, I've done that. I've said, okay, that's how you want to go about it, then go about it. And granted, that means that some of what I wanted to do for my child is diminished. And it's not fun for me at all. This is the next thing I thought. If this isn't just an amazing example of patience, I don't know what is. Hashem has not given up on his people. He did not destroy them, not nor did he even say anything against them. He saw that no matter what he did or said, they were determined to attempt to do things in their own way. And he let them. Just as sometimes those that we love need to learn something through experiencing what happens when they proceed without wisdom, or in other words, the hard way. And I'm a graduate of the School of the Hard Way, so I know what this is like. Israel seems to learn, Israel needs to learn that Hashem is in fact God, not them. And he does not, and that he knows exactly what that they need and what they want. In their excitedness, their zeal, anxiety, and fear, they tried to control Hashem. Hashem is hurt and angry. His hurt and anger are justified. And yet, instead of acting on that hurt, Hashem restrained himself and patiently taught Israel the longer, harder lesson of trusting him and how to receive a gift from him. When you think about how this applies to us, we need to look at how even though Hashem was very hurt and became very angry, he allowed his patience to rule his emotions. He used the situation, although not his preferred situation, to teach the people what they needed to learn. His reaction was measured and logical in its consequences to the behavior of Bnei Israel. He did not remain angry forever, and they did eventually take possession of the land. But when they did it with Hashem and in his way. If you think about all of the lessons that we have learned during the 40 years in the desert, you could also make the argument that we, Israel, gained far more than we would have had Hashem not cared about our heart and our attitude towards the gift of the promised land that he gave us. The author of this chapter repeatedly made the point that when you are being patient, you are carrying your load, quote unquote, without foisting it off onto others. Hashem did that. Sure, Moses knew that what we wanted was not good for us, was bad. But he went along with Hashem, and he allowed us to make the mistakes and to learn the lessons the hard way. Hashem could have made us feel the burden he felt. He didn't. He tempered himself and showed us the undeserved favor we needed. This week, as we practice patience in our own lives, let's model our actions after Hashem's and be willing to carry the burden of our hurt and disappointment and even anger, rather than spilling it out on those we love who have fallen short of our expectations. Oh, wow, that was so much for this week, and now I'm dying to hear what anybody else thinks. So I'm going to unmute everybody if I can figure out how to do that. Did I unmute everybody? Okay, so if you can unmute your mics and let me know, what do you think about all of this stuff? There's so much.
Hello, I guess
Hi,
it's
Missy Dog.
me and you and me.
Yes, I see that.
I had to put you on my phone. I'm running around the house, but I can see you much better in the computer. So I did dual.
That's good for me.
Yeah, what awesome teaching. Thank you so much. This
You're
all makes
welcome.
so much sense to me, and I can see you really worked hard on that last lesson especially. I
I
appreciate
was
that.
really shocked about the last lesson. I called Emmett going, how do I do this? I'm like, this is not cool.
Yeah, really.
I can't present God like this. So,
Uh, well, that's beautiful. It just shows your heart that you're in tune with how he works with us, you know?
thank you.
Well, you're so trained to be such a good mom to your special kids too. I think that had part
Aw.
of it too, you know.
Yeah,
But
and I can kind of I feel like I can relate to how God must have felt. I mean, like I said, I was like, "Oh," you know how you watch those movies and you just start cringing at certain moments?
you
And,
want to fix it for him?
one of the points that Emmett had made to me is he's like, "We gotta one of the biggest things you need to learn from this Torah portion is you never, ever, ever insult Israel. You don't.
Wow.
You don't insult
Uh-huh.
the land, you don't insult God, and you don't insult the people."
Oh,
And
that's so
the
beautiful.
the thing that we have to keep in mind is just as when we left, Egypt at Passover, this is still us. Just as we put ourselves in the story in Passover, we're still in the story,
Wow.
so it's it, to me it's disingenuous to step back and say those Israelites they messed up. No, we
Hmm.
messed up.
Right. It's there for us to learn from. Why, that's
Yes.
for sure.
And when you try to treat this parasha the way that this person did, it's like looking at God like he's not perfect. And it's
Wow.
looking at God like he didn't know what was going to happen and he
Wow.
didn't plan for all the contingencies, you
Mm.
know? And I'm sorry, but God is perfect and he has planned it all out and he has thought of every contingency.
Yeah.
So, I mean, more than anything, God has all of the variables accounted for and to see the fact that yes, when your child does something wrong, they experience some of the anger coming their way.
Right.
Granted, we are supposed to temper our anger and we're
Right.
not supposed to ever discipline in anger, but letting them see the anger is another story.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you lose your temper on your kid, but that means they see your face fall, they see that you're trying to marshal yourself together. And they may hear your voice be a little louder than usual. But at the same time, they're understanding, oh my gosh, I messed up and I need to fix this. And something I keep telling my kids, because right now, accepting correction is a hard thing for my kids in our house. And I keep telling them, a correction is somebody who cares enough about you to point out how you messed up so you can fix it.
Right. Right.
That's what this is it not? Didn't
Right.
Hashem say, "No, you guys messed up big in lots of ways. Let's see if you can fix it."
Wow.
And in the end, we did, because when we went through into Israel with Jehoshua, we conquered the land and we did it God's way.
Yep. The best way.
So,
His way is always best.
yes, it
We're
really is.
always learning that. Always learning that.
Yes,
That's
yes,
beautiful.
I am. So, yeah, I hope you im- if you read this chapter, remember what I said, because this
Yeah, I'm going to.
you're gonna get shocked.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll do that. Well, I need to get to my oven now to
yes,
see
yes.
what's going on in there.
Well,
I'm the
thank
world.
you for coming to class, Miss Hadas. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank you. Thank you for teaching it. It's very awesome. I'm sure a lot of people are going to watch the replay.
I hope so.
This
I
is
really
kind of
do.
not a very convenient time, really.
Oh, really? What time is more
Yeah.
convenient?
Um, well, either earlier or a couple hours later,
Okay.
because it's
I'll
right at.
talk to Miss Batya and we'll see if we can maybe move
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, that's me, but you know. or even a weeknight, but you know, I'll
Okay.
make it work whenever it whenever it comes on.
I'll talk to her and see what we can work out.
Okay, well, it's not just me though, you know.
I know.
Thank you so much, so
You
much.
got you have a
Love you all
wonderful
so much.
day, and I hope to see you on Shabbat. I saw you and
And
Raphael in the service.
yeah,
It was
we
so
were
encouraging to
actually
see you
there.
guys.
Yeah,
Yay.
I was surprised to be there, but I was sure glad.
My mom didn't believe me at first. I'm like, no, they're there.
I think I told her we wouldn't be, so
Yeah.
yeah, it was a wonderful surprise.
Well, thank
Uh,
you for coming, and
Thank you.
I hope this helps that everybody who gets to watch it. So,
I'm sure it
Baruch
will.
Hashem.
I'm sure it will. I'm going to replay it too because I was missing some in
Oh,
the
you
front.
just missed the first few minutes. Not too bad.
Okay. Thank you again.
All
Shavuot
right.
Tov.
Well, Shavuot Tov to you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.